All right, so I am excited to introduce our speaker, Joe Cloyes. So, serial entrepreneur. One thing I talk to the students a lot about that I appreciate in particular is we're in the Silicon Valley, and so there's like, oh, what's the next app, AI thing, and there's so many different types of businesses that you've got into in particular that involve physical products, despite the digital world we live in. So, co-founder of Father's Beer most recently, Flag Bag Golf, Lore Fragrance Company, right?
Yep.
And then also Youth to the People, which was acquired by L'Oreal. And I believe, your entrepreneurial roots go back years within your family. I think your grandma and you and your cousin, working there as kids growing up and things. So
yeah,
excited to learn more about that. So let's welcome Joe.
appreciate it. All right. All right, so yeah, thanks for the intro. Happy to be here. Aaron and I met actually through kids, so you never know who you're going to meet in the world as you grow up and shift and move, and you end up in the suburbs like we are, and trying to teach our kids how to play t-ball right now.
That's right, yeah.
Fortunately, I think we're better at business than that, but it'll work out. So my name's Joe, co-founder of a bunch of brands now. Sat in college, just like you guys all are now. I actually got my bachelor's in public administration. I was going to go work for the city, do city planning. Got out of school, did that for a little bit, kind of tried to figure it out, and then realized I didn't want to do that. I didn't like working for people. And was very fortunate that my family had a very small skincare company that my grandmother had started. And my cousin Greg and I, who were really close, were like brothers, were like, hey, let's go check that out. Let's do that for a couple of years. So did that, and immediately fell in love with, exactly that, being an entrepreneur. I was very fortunate that I got to learn from my grandmother, from my aunts. They taught me a ton that I would have never been able to learn in a normal job. But it kind of gave me that leap to be like, okay, let's start building my own things. But it all started with the core idea of like, I want to build stuff that I think people will want to buy or use that I think are like better. And better is kind of a simple way of saying it, but I truly believe that you can't start a company. I think there's a lot of companies that start and do very well just like making a copycat of another version, just being better marketers. That's great. My idea was always like, and my cousin, and now my new business partner's like, let's build a better version. What's that niche? What's that hole? And let's build like the best possible version of it that we would actually really want to use, not just make it to make money. Now, of course, we want to make a lot of money, so how do we find that balance? And that's where you have to be really good. And then you got to get lucky. And I think luck a lot of the time comes from hard work. You can kind of work your way into luck. That's a little bit of like the why and the how, I guess. I started Youth to the People when I was 2015, so I was 33. So just to give you an idea, I was kind of like, did a couple jobs, did another job, started with my family company for about 5 years to learn the ins and outs before I was like, my cousin and I were like, hey, let's start this. This will be fun. We're learning in the beauty industry. We're learning everything we can about skincare, selling to salons and spas. Let's start a retail brand. Instagram had just started to get hot. I'm surprised it's still alive, honestly. But like, this is when Instagram was way different. There were no ads. The algorithm just did what you asked it to do. Influencers were starting to become a thing. And so we're like, let's start a skincare brand. Let's leverage Instagram. Let's build a direct-to-consumer website and see what we can't do. But we're using our family's heritage, which was make the cleanest skincare that is very effective. And when I say that, clean being better ingredients for you and better ingredients for the planet. And that was a really simple thought process, but back then, 10, 12 years ago when we started making it, beauty didn't have a lot of transparency because there's not a lot, like when you buy food, there's an ingredient list, everything that's in it, right? FDA requires. They don't require that in skincare, so you don't have to put the ingredients. That's changed now. A lot of that's changed in the last 10 years, but clean beauty, which is the movement I was a part of, was kind of driven through that. People wanted more transparency. It doesn't mean everything is all natural, it's just you want to know what's in it. And some of these ingredients that are chemically made, what are they? What are they derived from? Are they good for you? And so Greg and I, our path there was really just, let's build the cleanest possible products, learning from our family that, again, are good for you, good for the planet. And then let's build a brand that stands for something beyond product. Because for us, that's what we learned from our family. You take care of people, you take care of the people around you, they'll take care of you. And so we really wanted to build a brand that stood for something beyond just great product that we thought could stand the test of time Because any product, any brand, anything in the world you've seen, the ones that last the longest can kind of evolve with trends because they kind of stand for something beyond that. So that was a big part of our thesis when we started figuring out what we were doing and building it. And we stumbled a ton along the way. We changed everything possible probably 10 times. Again, we launched it in 2015. It probably took us 2 years to build it, so we started working in like 2013, which was pretty fast. But we had the inside of like a family little skincare company that we could kind of cheat and use in the background. Superfoods were hot at the time, so like 2000, that was the other side of it, was superfoods. And superfoods for us were like, green juice was just getting popular. And there were smoothies and green juice shops everywhere, especially in LA. My cousin lives in LA. Like, man, this is something. What if we did a green juice skincare? Be on the activist side, like that would be cool. What if we did a kale cleanser? That was kind of the idea, the light bulb, like, oh shit, that's it. We've been talking about like doing a brand. And then Greg called me, he's like, hey, what if we did a kale cleanser? I was like, oh, that's it. That would actually, everyone's eating kale now. Kale's hot. Kale's not as hot now, but it was. And then boom, Youth of the People was born. And that's why it became Youth of the People. We could have called it, superfood skincare and done all right. But calling Youth of the People was the behind the scenes, like the message we wanted to stand for something greater. And that's where the name came from. Youth just being like, not young, but just like, youth is like that eternal state of optimism, I feel like. And if you can bring that into your brand, bring that into your products, you're gonna start to build a community around that. And ultimately, they talk about your products. Let's see. I got some basics there on what the brand's about. In 2017, we got Sephora. And Sephora was something that for us took the brand from a tiny little thing we were selling on the website to, we went from about $500K in revenue to $2 million in revenue in 6 months. Which, when you get into starting a company, to get to that revenue, you need a lot of cash. So we almost like completely bankrupted all of our family's companies, everything to like try to pay for this. We just made it through, and we did our Series A in the beginning of 2018. We raised $2 million, which was for us was like, we'd never seen that much money before. There was like another comma in our bank account. We're like, oh shit, we made it. Now this all went into the company, right? We sold equity that we owned in the company for this money. But it allowed us to then grow the brand with Sephora, really build out like a team, start to hire. And then in so that was 2016, 17, and then 2018, we really took off. We did like 17 million in revenue, or no, 7 million in revenue. Then we did 17, and then 30, and then 50 in 2021 when L'Oreal came in and acquired us. Now, most brands as you build, you don't build that fast. There's plenty of brands that have been purchased by L'Oreal that took 20, 25 years. So we definitely we just hit the right product at the right time with the right consumer mindset of clean, which was a trend, of brands that stand for something beyond product, which is, I think, continually something you see out there. People want to buy. I want to buy stuff that I like. I know who made it and why they made it and what it, kind of the beyond that. So for us, that was really important and something L'Oreal was interested in. We raised 2 series. So we did Series B and then we went into the exit. So we raised twice. Raising money, I don't know how much you guys talk about that here or in some of your other classes, but it's quite the fascinating thing. We can talk about that a little bit later. I've done it a few times now. It's really interesting. But again, ultimately led to the L'Oreal exit. My cousin Greg and I did a couple years full-time inside the L'Oreal office and then have continually backed out since then. It's a different world being in a big corporation. They're awesome. They know what they're doing. They're the biggest beauty conglomerate in the world by far. But there's a lot of decks. There's a lot of work between the work that I don't like to do. I like to build stuff. So that's where you hear that a lot, or you will hear that a lot, especially as you continue to meet more founders. They typically leave once they're acquired, not because what the strategic's doing is bad for the company, more that you just get bored as a founder. You're like, I don't want to do half the stuff they do. So, but that was that. I left there in full-time in 2023. I still do stuff probably every 3 or 4 months or so. We'll talk for a day or two, or I'll travel somewhere and present to a new country that they're launching it in, which is really fun, and it's cool to see it. It's cool to go into Sephora still and see the products, bring my daughters, like, oh, there's Youth of the People, it's so exciting. So it's really fun. Now, fast forward a couple years, Youth of the People doing well in the L'Oreal world. My cousin and I backed out and we were like, how do we start something new? Which now we have launched Lore. So Lore is fragrance, not skincare, still in the beauty world, because that's what we know. And with a third co-founder, and I think this is something that Greg and I learned, is all the founders we knew that were solo founders versus Greg and I having each other, we just had such an advantage. If you have that extra partner with you in the room, that's not an investor, that's not a board member, that's like, whether it's your best friend, person you met at business school, it's somebody that has the same idea you just met, but you guys just click, is huge. Because at the end of the day, 80% of the decisions you make the first 5-10 years are gut instinct. And so if you can bounce that off somebody else you truly trust, that there's not a ulterior motive behind, you're probably gonna get the best product out of it. And every founder I know that I've met, that I've invested in brands, they all, the best ones, they take all the data in, but they ultimately trust their gut instinct in the consumer space. Because at the end of the day, you gotta walk into a store, right, and buy it. There's no other way. You gotta walk in a store, or you buy it on, most people buy it on the phone, but like you buy it on your phone because you see something you want. It's physical, and you're gonna get it. And you're not gonna tell anybody about it if it's not a good product. And so gut instinct becomes a lot of it, because I think the big guys, the strategics, L'Oreal, Budweiser, anybody like that, it's the reason they buy brands and don't build them, they don't know how. And so I think being an entrepreneur, a lot of it is just like good gut instinct. Do something you want to do something you truly believe in, that if everybody else you talk to was like grinding you, like, why are you doing this? You can always be like, I just love it. No one can ever stop that answer, right? And so I think that's, as Greg and I talked about doing our next thing, Melanie, who's our lead founder CEO of Lore, she had that same mindset. We knew her for a long time. She's been a long-time friend. She'd been in the beauty industry a long time. She was the CEO of was recently of Hailey Bieber's brand Rhode. Prior to that, of a brand called Merit, or Miracle Burst. So she's been in beauty a long time. We're very close friends. We trust each other's instincts. Like, hey, let's build this. You lead the show. We'll help you build it behind the scenes. And the idea there was the same thing. Like, how do we build a fragrance brand that it's a little bit different in fragrance than skincare, because you don't, like, physically, you're not changing somebody, if you will, like skincare wise. But how do you build something that creates almost that invisible connection? Because that's really what fragrance is. Fragrance is, you smell something, it reminds you of something else. When you smell that, and it's like, what does it remind you of? And can you make a really cool brand in the world out of that? So once we landed on that as like our core belief, how we were going to do it, it's like, great, now we build it out. Let's make sure luxury, different experience, and have some fun. And that's been a really cool process. It's been different building it with somebody besides my cousin, and a really good learning experience for me. And it's been different going from like a CEO of Youth to People to just a co-founder, which has been a good thing that I think most entrepreneurs don't get the opportunity to experience, which is trying different parts of it. You usually kind of get stuck in your lane and you don't try it all, and then want to keep trying things. Lore is now launched in Sephora, launched on our website. It's new, we're 6 months old, it's growing. We're learning a ton. It's different. As much as I know about skincare and the beauty industry, fragrance is a different mindset than skincare, as far as how you acquire a customer, how you retain that customer, why did they convert. All those things are a lot different, so we're learning, which to me is a lot of the fun. That's a lot of the challenge. You can have the best marketers in the world, but if you don't understand why that kind of customer community you built is converting, nothing else really matters. So it's a lot of learning, a lot of watching and talking to your customer as much as you can. I think you can get a lot of data now that you probably couldn't before, but I still believe a lot in just talking to the customers, seeing what they want. Follow the info app, if you will. Your info at email, like, check that. I think all founders should do that. I don't think enough of them do. Now everybody uses AI, but you should check it. It's very helpful. So whatever company you guys go on and start, work at, do, even if you're not a founder of it, check out that inbox. You're gonna learn a lot about the company really fast. The faster way too is check the comments. On IG or TikTok, check the comments, you'll learn a lot. But if people actually DM or write you an email, it's just 10 times more effective than a comment, because comments are too public. People are always like shy, right? So Lore's now launched, learning a lot there. Have a little more free time than I used to with Youth of People, so I started another brand, Father's Lager. I saw a sticker over there, so that's always fun. So for me, this was a different experience. I had other friends, co-founders that I knew that we had both exited companies and wanted to start something new and different, and Fathers came about, and the core principle was very much the same as I did with Youth of People. And Laura was like, all right, what is I like beer. I want a better beer. I don't think it's, questionable, is any beer good for you? But how can we make the cleanest, best tasting beer out there? I'm a lager guy. I've been down a whole road of all types of beers, and I wanted a really good tasting lager. That was what I wanted. And I wanted to be organic and as clean as possible, and that didn't really exist. So, good friend of mine named Connor, he had started a company called Tribe Dynamics that was in the social media space, that was also acquired at the same time. I used his platform, we were a customer of his, became friends. We always talked about building a beer brand to be kind of fun, so we did it. He called me one day, he's like, hey, what if we did clean beer? I was like, oh, that's a great idea, we should do that. And so then, what do? We take the next year figuring out, well, we were seeing probably no different than you all see in social media about whatever, what's the most recent one? A kombucha brand, Health Aid is getting called out on, like the PFOAs in it, right? You see that in beer, you see that in every part of the grocery store, but there wasn't an option yet in beer for that clean version. And I knew from my experience in clean beauty, I knew from watching what was happening in food, that there was an opportunity there to kind of create a new niche, a new channel of beer that hadn't been explored yet. And so for us, it was like, this could be fun. Now, only way to pull it off was, beer's very different than beauty, so I need experts. Connor happened to know a great brewer that'd been brewing beer and won medals all over the world. Call him up, bring him on board. Find the best breweries in the Bay Area, where we live in Lafayette, so in the Bay Area that have space to rent to like sort of brew and practice and figure it out. And the other part is test it. Is the rest of beer, is it quote unquote not clean? Find out what's going on, and then how do we reverse out of that stuff? Which was a really fun project. It was a lot of lab testing. We made a lot of beer, probably made 20,000 beers that were samples that we gave out to friends and family, tried out, what do you think it tastes? And then we also tested to see like, what's wrong. What we found was PFOAs, microplastics, heavy metals, Roundup, all the things you would think of in beer that you'd find everywhere else in the grocery store. So it wasn't like a shock. Anything that's not organic, you see these things. And so it was like, cool, let's make a clean American lager. Again, getting back to this core, like what's the difference? What's our niche that we truly believe in? Like, do I want to drink this beer? Maybe not every day, but when I do drink beers, it's the only beer I'll drink. And so that's, for us, it's like, okay, now I got something we believe in. It's not on this picture, but we just got USDA organic certified, which took some time. We're scaling out right now. We're just in the East Bay. We're gonna grow it nationally over the next 10 years is the goal, but I kind of circle back always on like, what is the purpose of its existence? That's what I always ask new founders. And I've met a ton of beauty founders over the years. They're like, I got too many cleanest brand. I'm like, it's gotta be something more, right? Like, what is the purpose? And so even this, it's like, it's technically probably the cleanest beer out there, but our other goal and our bigger goal is like, let's have the best tasting American lager on the planet, because most lagers, American lagers like Coors Light, but they're all in a race to the bottom, just lowest price point, not premium quality. So that's our other side to it, because you can't just win on clean. Same thing with Youth of People. It worked because our products worked really well, because we had all this background in making skincare for 30 plus years as a family. Yeah, that's for us, for me, as I start each brand. And you'll notice the other theme there I should talk about too, that depending on the entrepreneurs you meet, there's always other people I do it with. It's always kind of a we. I do that again, as I said earlier. I just found it's more fun that way. When you're the only, I know a lot of beauty founders that were solo, and they were just, I didn't know it at first. My cousin Greg and I are best friends, and I was like, this would be super fun to do, and let's figure it out. But as I've met other beauty founders, and then now other founders in beer and other spaces, if you're at the top alone, it is lonely. And ultimately, you need a lot of people around you. So if you can have that one person that you can always call, no matter what, like Connor was just calling me on the beer probably right now, it's important, because it just, for me, A, you have that gut check, and then B, it's just more fun. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they lose the fun at some point, because they don't necessarily have somebody to celebrate all the wins with. Because as you hire a team and build a team out, you can celebrate it with them, but there's a layer. When it's your employee, it's somebody you've hired. If it's a board member there and they put money in, there's always a little bit of a layer of like, how much can I completely open up? Versus if you have those people you totally trust, you can just open up, be excited, you can be pissed off when you need to be pissed off, whatever it is, you're gonna be there tomorrow working hard. So that's a little bit of my advice, and I think I've been very fortunate with, mainly with Greg as my cousin, now with Melanie, now with Connor, that we all have the same, we've aligned on a shared value of what the goal of the brand and business is, and that's always our North Star. And all the rest, you can have disagreements on all the time, but we're all coming back to like, we're trying to make this North Star the best thing possible, and all these other things are just conversations around, well, are we making it better, yes or no? And so then it's less like a fight, if you will, it's more of a just like, I think it should be this way, you think it should be that way, what best aligns with this North Star? And that allows, even as you hire and build big teams, they really then understand, and they become experts at their job because they know what the North Star is more than anything else. And it allows for them to actually work a little more autonomously because they're not just, I don't know, always accepting a yes or a no is the best way to say it. So, a little bit about the brands that I've got going. I think you mentioned Flag Bag. I've invested in a few other brands over the years. That's been kind of my fortune post selling youth to people. I was very fortunate to invest in other brands and kind of be a part of those and just learn from other cool founders and support them in their early days, the support I got from my investors. Yeah, that's where we're at. What else? There were some questions, Aaron, you sent me that I kind of built out under here.
I can ask those later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the 3 brands if we want to, open it up to questions. I'm not sure.
Why don't we start, you started to dip your toe into fundraising?
Yeah.
Why don't you talk a little bit more about the good,
Yeah.
the bad, the ugly of that?
Yeah. So for Youth of People, we raised $2 million and then $10 million. What was really interesting with that is, we knew the number we needed. So the most important thing of fundraising, you need to know how much cash you need, and then you need to know how much your equity you're willing to give up. 2 very important things, because you may only need $5 million, but if someone will give you 7 or 8, and you're okay with that much dilution, always take it. You always need more money than you think you need. I have never met a brand founder, at least that I've met, that has had too much money from investors. They never raise enough, right? Because we're selling ownership in our company. And we're selling it, we don't get any of that money, right? Like the goal is eventually you sell and you get money, but you're probably working for next to nothing. You're selling off a chunk of this company you built to somebody else to put money in to work more for still next to nothing. And they get ownership, right? So it's like, it sucks. But at the same time, you also like, well, I'm out of money. And most banks don't lend to early stage grants. Everyone thinks, oh, I can get a loan. You can't get a loan on an early stage grant. You have to have like a bunch of money in the bank before you can get a loan. So it's a big like, okay, what do I do? So I've been through 6 different fundraisers now for my companies and then for other companies that I've helped out and advised. I was fortunate with Youth of People. We were the hottest brand in skincare for a couple of years, growth-wise, metric-wise, anything you saw. So every investor wanted to give us cash. It was a very easy fundraise. Now then the trick became who's the right person, because once you get their money, they also get a board seat, they have these investor rights. Everything's good, great. If everything's bad, not so great, what happens? And so I learned a lot from our lawyers, from friends, and I think this is something I recommend to any entrepreneurs. We talk to as many people possible in the beauty space when we were raising people, like, what'd you do when you raised? What did you miss? What did you fuck up on? What did you love? Like, everything we could learn as fast as possible, right? Doing the same thing for fathers. I didn't know anything about beer until 18 months ago. So what did? We talked to we talked to the CFO and the head of development for Boston Beer, Samuel Adams. The biggest beer companies in the world. How do we do that? We DM'd them on LinkedIn, reached out, said we were doing. They're like, yeah, come out, check it out, say hello. So like, just kept doing that. Met all these guys from Anheuser-Busch, all the local craft breweries we met, everyone in the Bay Area, every beer person we could meet, every investor that ever invested in beer, so we could learn about the industry as fast as possible and hear all the pitfalls, all the wins, losses, right? Because they've all lived it. And so I think in fundraising, it's the same thing. Talk to as many people as possible, figure it out, and that's what we did. What we found was you get what's called a term sheet. And when you sign that term sheet, you're saying, all right, we have 30 days to kind of hash this deal out, but here's the basics of it. And once you sign that, you're in an exclusive window. And that exclusive window really sucks. Because depending how much cash you have left, like what your burn rate is, if you don't finish the deal in those 30 days, you're kind of a free agent again. You can go raise more, which is great, but if you're about to run out of money, so it's a clock both ways, and so you have to, the most important thing is that term sheet, because if you can iron out as much as you can in the term sheet, you're never locked in. And so we learned, that was the biggest thing we learned. We learned, trust your lawyer, get a good lawyer you trust, it's hugely important. And then, make it as founder friendly as possible, and how do you do that? again, Youth to People saw at time, we were the hottest brand, so everybody was willing to do kind of what we wanted. I'm helping out another brand right now, they're in a little bit of rough shape. Term sheet beyond the valuation is rough. There's a lot of rules in there. There's covenants like they get to put in 2 board members versus 1, so now what? Now they are losing control of the board, this founder is. She's also losing, what was the other piece? So financial maneuvers, anything outside of the agreed upon board budget for the year, over $25,000 has to be approved by board. Circle back, right now that board has 2 people, it's $20, so now your hands are tied to do anything, right? So we had a $500,000 limit on our term sheet, for example. So as long as it's under 500K, you can get real creative with 500K, right? We maintain control of the board, we didn't have to put in any executives. So there's things like that. So the term sheet, as you continue to learn about fundraising, is hugely important, because if the term sheet has everything you need in it, you know it's gonna be great. And if they go back on the term sheet in day 1 or 2 of actual paperwork, then you know that's not the investor you want anyways, and you kick them out of the room. So again, you wanna raise from a position of power. Everybody, can say that. And if you can't raise from it, just be ready cash-wise. Like our first fundraise, we were so close to running out of money, and we got lucky that the investor we ultimately picked didn't, in the deal, decide to change their mind and get better terms, because we would have had to say yes, because we didn't have enough cash to make. We had 22 days of cash left, so we didn't have an option. Fortunately, they were good people. Good people mean everything. Our second investor was Youth to People, came highly recommended. Actually, a lower valuation, meaning we were giving up a little more money to pick them, but the ones that were higher had a couple red flags from other people. Not bad, maybe I don't know, yellow flags, but we're like, is it worth the risk? That's gonna suck if down the road we're in a pinch and they do what we've heard they might have done before, all for an extra 0.5% to each of us. That's why I say when you raise money, it's how much money do you need, and then how much equity are you willing to give up is almost more important, because if you know that, you know how far you're willing to raise and what valuations you can kind of play with. If you have multiple partners, make sure you really talk that through ahead of time. Don't do it while you're trying to raise money. Have it all, know all that ahead of time. It's so important. What else have I seen in fundraising? I like making sure investors have been in the space, investors that have not been in the space but are trying to get into it. It's, your investors are there to help you out and be your guideline, and every piece of advice you can get from them, and hopefully they're connected in the space. One of the best things our investors always do is connect us with other people. They didn't necessarily sit there and say, here's the next product you should do, or here's how to run your P&L, but they just, oh yeah, one of our investors, it was an investor named Ken, his company was called Sandbridge Capital. One of his main investors in his fund was Tommy Hilfiger. So we got to meet Tommy Hilfiger, talk to him about a bunch of things, right? Which was that's great. Things like that, right? Their networks are the most powerful thing they have. And so that's where you want the right investor. Trying to think of what else here. That's fundraising. Just be ready. It's brutal.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I was wondering, how do you deal with competition in consumer, because there's in fragrances and beer, the incumbents are so powerful and just the default option where people go to, and then also for Youth to People, when you're getting trendy, how do you stay trendy and solidify yourself into skincare?
Yeah. It's kind of the same answer for all of them. It's you need to build a super strong loyal community, right? And so how do you do that? You identify early on who's buying the product and why, and then you keep finding those cohorts of people. And social media makes it candidly much easier, because you can look at, there's a bunch of platforms you can use, and you can look at who's this creator that's talking about us that has 1 million followers, and why do they love the brand? You see everybody following them and see who else following them has a big following, and you start to reach out to them, right? And so you just build these cohorts of people that are community-wise in the same bubbles. Now, at Youth to People or at Fathers, at Fathers, I'm not reaching out to all the beauty influencers I know right now. I'm hey, you want to talk about our beer? We're not going to do it. It doesn't make sense, right? So we're reaching out to local Bay Area food bloggers, local Bay Area beer people, some beer experts around the country. So, build the cohorts of who's your dream of people that would be talking about the brand that makes sense. We know a few NFL guys, so they're starting to talk about the brand, right? Beer and football makes sense. And so it kind of, you build those cohorts out of like dream scenario, and then you just work your way down, and you can see who's following them, who they're following, and you keep going down the rabbit hole of like, hey, where do I start? If you're an early brand with no money, no reach, no following, you got to start with some, like somebody may have 3,000 followers. Great, get them to start talking about it, right? Two of their friends might like that, and they talk about it. So that's a big part of it. And then I think when the trends are going, well, it's two parts. For both fathers, youth of people, lore, we are launching in categories that, like you said, there's massive strategic players. The big strategics, they can never hit a trend because their the way they work is 2 to 3 year cycles behind everything. And so, and I only learned this now, being in L'Oreal and like learning a lot about the beer industry. If you think about it, right, like if I'm L'Oreal's a $36 billion a year company. If they make a big decision to shift something in one of their brands that could cost them $1 billion, they better have a lot of data points to do that, because they all report to somebody else who reports to the board and so on and so forth. So they have to, like, they can't just sit there, see something on Instagram, pull up their Shopify website and change it. And so by the very default of the way if they saw all that, it would be still at least a 12-month process before they change it, because it would go up the ladder and down. So when you're a new brand, you have the agility to jump in and kind of get up to it. Now, I'm in very big consumer spaces, right? Skincare, fragrance, beer. So you can build a significantly sized company before they even know, the big guys know about you. Because they're, so big. You can build a 20, 30, $40 million company. Beer, I mean, I think we can get fathers up to 100 million in revenue. I don't know if we'll get there, but our goal is to get to 100 million in revenue. And Budweiser won't even know who we are, because they're doing, 20 billion a year of lager sales. So we haven't even touched there, right? Like, they've got so many things to worry about. And so I think the space, I think a lot of people are like, oh, skincare's tough, fragrance, because it's so crowded, there's so many big ones, but at the same time, there's a lot of available low-hanging fruit that to you is like, low-hanging fruit's like 80-20 rules. I don't know if you guys talked about that, or one of your other classes. 80-20, 80% of your business comes from 20% of your customers, right? Well, I'll take all their like lowest 5% of customers that they're not even worried about. They would be my 80%. I think is a better way to think about it. Like, there's so much out there. Now, to get that traction, to get that trend, you have to, again, I think stand for something beyond. The people had superfoods, we had science, we were hitting the green juice moment perfectly. So everyone's like, oh shit, I'm drinking a kale juice every day. Let me get a kale cleanser, right? So it was just little things like that, and then those trends shifted. We had launched, does anybody here know the brand Guayaki? I think it's just yerba mate now, the yellow can. That's been around a long time, but it got really hot 7-8 years ago. They really started getting a lot of traction. So we launched a yerba mate vitamin C product and kind of collabed with them and like did a whole thing. And so it's still superfood, still a trending ingredient, similar situation. We got that whole thing together in like a year. Like, we started seeing more yerba mate. Funny enough, our office in LA, our junior employees were starting to bring in the yerba mate can. We're like, what's going on? This is interesting. We're already working on a vitamin C. So you have moments like that where you catch a trend. Beauty's pretty trendy. You got to be able to move pretty fast. I think with beer, something like this, it's like, I just see, you can't walk into a grocery store now and without seeing an organic version of whatever you want to buy, right? It's like a non-organic and organic version. Almost everything in the grocery store. Beer was the last aisle, last part that did. Wine has it. Alcohol doesn't have necessarily, they have some organic, but a lot of it's just like additive free. And so beer wasn't happening. So that was the one spot we saw that, again, kind of a niche. So then what happens, you bring it out to local buyers. Same thing with you, we brought this before, they're like, this is different, I like this. Beer, we bring it to a local grocery store, like, there's nothing like this is great. You just kind of think, okay, we're on to something now, let's keep going. Yeah, a lot of it's just, grind. But there's a lot out there. I think the biggest reason most entrepreneurs don't get into spaces is they think it's already done. But it's not. There's plenty of low-hanging fruit to build a really good business, as long as you believe in like what you have that you're building.
Who were like the early adopters for each of the 3 like different companies you?
good question. I'd say, beauty's very like, with Youth and People, it was definitely, we started seeding local beauty influencers in the LA area that we could actually meet with. And then they started talking to their communities. So it's very much a true skincare beauty driven brand. So you're finding people that are really into what their nighttime, cleansing routine is. What are they doing they're really into skincare, right? As much as it was like me and my cousin Greg, we built a really simple 3-step skincare line that wasn't this complex thing, thinking it'd be for everybody. But actually thinking then like we could get all the people that don't really use skincare. And the reverse happened, that our products were really good. So we've got the people that really love skincare into the products. And then it circled out. And so that's how it was for youth. For fragrance, so far it's been, because we had a bit of a background in beauty, we raised money for lore as well. And so we did a pre-launch raise. And so we can talk about that, but we had Sephora, we had the product, we had a launch plan. We raised our money in April of last year, but we didn't launch until September. So normally consumer can't do that, but because we had our resumes and because we had a Sephora deal, we had a whole plan. A lot of investors are interested, they got in. And same thing there, that was gonna launch a little bit bigger always because we had the money, we had the resources, and we had the know-how. And so even there though, it's like, cool, well, who are our early adopters? Lore's designed to be a very luxurious fragrance company. It's designed to be very high fashion. Melanie is the face of it's very high fashion, so we wanted to do a combination of like the true fragrance, and there is a list of, you can track every metric of the best fragrance creators. Start there for the fragrance. Like if you're following a fragrance creator, you are into fragrance, right? Or maybe your son, but like you probably have 10 to 15 fragrances at your house. If you're following a fragrance creator, that's 500. And so that's our early stage. Like we have to get them first. Be like, this smells good. This is really complex. I love it. And then the rest, the high fashion side, the other stuff we're gonna do is start to roll out after that.
For a product like Lure, how do you get like fragrance out to customers for them to be like, oh, this smells like good when they've seen the product online or something
Yeah,
like that?
that's been the hardest part. It's funny, Sephora calls it smellable content. It's like if you see it, you can smell it, which is kind of a minefield. You're like, what? How do I do that? So 2 parts. You try to build smellable content. So meaning the notes that we have in there, we'll try to use those ingredients, put them around pictures, figure that out. And then you do a lot of sampling. So we'll probably do about 1 million samples with Sephora this year that are little like 3 cc little vials of sprays that you get. And then we have these sampling programs with verified reviewers. So you can pay a company and you can, it's called Influencer. And we send out 2,000 products to them, and they send out 2,000 people in their cohort that are like verified product reviewers. They don't have to say positive, they can be negative. The idea is though you're just getting a ton of reviews onto that product, whether it's on our site or Sephora, so that you can, if you didn't see a Lore ad, you're like, oh, I'm kind of in that ball, I want to check it out. You go look at Sephora, everyone goes to reviews. You can then read the reviews and really get a feel for like, what does it smell like by how people are talking about it. But that's been a big learning for us. It's a lot. But same thing with these people. Our Youth People cleanser was the top cleanser in the US for many years, and it was like, we probably sampled 3 million of those things around the country over like 5 years, just getting it out there every day. It's a lot of sampling, because people, they want to feel it, they want to touch it, they want to smell it, so it becomes really important. And we're doing that same thing with beer. We're handing out a lot of beer. If you're 21.
Yeah.
I don't know how everyone is.
So on that note, we're out of time, so,
Okay.
but
Yeah.
let's thank Joe.